I think my favorite part of the conversation is when she said divorce shouldn't even be a part of our vocabulary. This is a very tough subject to deal with, but we're willing to have open hearts to talk about it. Hey, it's Arrow inside the LAProductions.us studio. We are unplugged and totally uncut with the author of The Heartache and the Healing, Jen Miller. This is a book that is not only does it bring out confessions, but you've decided to turn what you went through into a tool for others to heal with. That takes a lot of courage.
Yeah, it does.
To do that, though, you had to walk across a valley. What was that? What was the deciding point for you to be able to be that open?
To be open, I think what it was just simply that I realized after going through it that there's a lot of people that are going through the same thing, and I wanted to be able to help them. I felt like it would be pointless to go through something that traumatic and not help somebody through it.
Were you able to face the why did we go through it? I mean, is it just the way society is and we all want to be loved and accepted and things happen?
The why part, I think I just realized that it was for my benefit. Even if I were to go back in time and redo my life, I wouldn't change it. I would still continue to keep things the same because I'm a much stronger person now because of it.
Does that mean that you don't have those moments where you have that dull ache inside of you?
It does. It really does. I don't regret what happened. I regret the fact that I was not a very good wife at the beginning of my marriage, and I could have been a much nicer person that my husband wanted to be with. And if that were something I could change, I would probably change that. But I think the dull ache, if there is any, is there to remind me that I don't want to ever go back to that time of my life again and be that person that I used to be.
That is so true, because when we live in this age and stuff like that, without those reminders and without that awareness of, okay, I know where I've been and I don't want to go in that direction again, it's almost like you went to hell and you came back.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And to be in that situation, you're willing to stand out there not on a box, but rather you're willing to listen to others grow and then to help them, grow in their own direction as well by way of not only faith, but basically forgiving.
Yes. That is the point of my story, I think, is to help people realize how to forgive and exactly the steps I took to get through it.
How do you forgive? Because that usually means forgetting, but I'm not one that forgets so easily.
Well, forgiving is not forgetting. Forgiving is a process that you go through, and for me, that process probably took about 2 years to get through. It took a daily reminder to myself that my husband is not my enemy, even though he did something very traumatic, very hard for me to get through. He's not my enemy. Satan is my enemy. And I can forgive the person. I just do not forget what happened. And that is just like that reminder you talked about. That's there to remind me that I don't want to go back to that state that I used to be in that led him to do what he did. I don't condone what he did. I don't say that having an affair is ever a good thing, and it's never right, and what he did is between him and God. But what I contributed to the whole situation was certainly not a home where he wanted to be welcome.
And even at my church, my pastor will say, God will put you in places that you don't want to be in because God needs you for the future. Man, I really don't want to say that God creates situations like this but at the same time, you're such a brilliant teacher right now because of it.
He allows those situations because we all have free will.
Right.
He wanted us to have free will, and that free will is there for a reason so that we can put it to use and use God's glory for other people to come to know him.
The book we're talking about is The Heartache and the Healing. So many times we talk about that healing process, but you've got to run face to face with people that they're not interested in healing. They're more into seeking revenge, and that's not a happy place.
No, it isn't. And yeah, a lot of people just want a quick fix, and getting through something like an extramarital affair is never going to be a quick fix.
How did you deal with what's sitting on the cutting room floor? In other words, your entire, you put the book together, but not all of it went to the pages. What's still sitting on the floor?
Oh, my. I guess Do you mean what is still to be dealt with?
Well, I think it's one of those things where, you know how authors are. We put it all in the book, and then the editor comes along and says, okay, this is too much. It's not enough. And to me, that is where the story, it's like a radio announcer. The best part of a radio show is what you're not saying on the air. Okay.
Yeah, I think if people could see my husband and I together now, that part is really not in the book. The last part of the book, I did include a little bit of our life now, but I think if we were to get in front of a group of people and share our story together and they see the two of us interacting, and honestly, we are best friends. And I don't say that in a tongue-in-cheek fashion. I say that in all honesty. We're like we were when we first met as teenagers. We're best friends, and we can share our hearts with each other. There's no secrets anymore. And I think if people saw that, they would realize how good it can be if you completely surrender everything to God. And that's what I had to do, is I had to completely say, Lord, my husband is yours. Take him as low as you got to take him, and help me to heal myself.
Surrendering yourself to God like that, did that mean that, because it's so easy to run off to a church and get locked up in the four walls of that church and get an e-group or get into things like that. But man, you still have to come into the four walls of your home, which at times during moments like that is more of a house than it is a home.
Yes. One of the biggest things that helped us is we moved after the affair occurred. We moved from Pennsylvania to North Carolina, and that was like a fresh start for us. It was still very difficult because our family and our friends and everybody that knew us was in Pennsylvania, and we had to move to a completely different state where we didn't know a single person. But it did give us a chance to start all over and get away from where the affair occurred and away from the other person and everything like that. So that definitely helped.
Have you guys decided to take it up to the fourth level, which is basically first of all, you had the experience, then you had to live the experience, and then you wrote the book. Are you going to take it to a level of solution so that readers and listeners can go to a website and they can learn from you?
Yes, we have. My husband is actually retired from the United States Army now and is a Christian marriage counselor.
Huh.
So I would have never thought that would happen. And he and I both have a website. I have a website on Wix.com, The Heartache and the Healing, and he has a website for his business and is actually partnering with the same Christian marriage counseling place that he and I went to when we were in our crisis. It's called His High Places. So we partner with them. We do a lot of mental health care. We do a lot of marriage counseling, mentoring, ministries in the marriage, all that kind of stuff.
See, I'm so in love with people being in love. I've been in the wedding business for 26 years. So I get to be with the couple before they get married, but you don't, once they share their vows and have that celebration, I don't get to see them to go through the struggles. It's almost like I'm passing them on to you guys. Do you see that journey growing in other people's lives as well?
I do, yes, and that's kind of where I see even our book and our ministry in our home where we have the counseling is this kind of material. It would be ideal for premarital couples. It would be ideal for those going through the crisis in a marriage or a divorce, and even family, friends, and therapists, counselors out there who are trying to help other people deal with it. Because I talk a lot about our children at the time, my parents, my husband's parents, and everybody that knew our situation and how we all dealt with it.
What I love about your book is that it's not just about affairs. It's about things that we face in an everyday world as husbands and wives. Even that as we grow older and our parents are getting older, the struggles of having to take care of a parent or the struggles of going through the teen years. This is a book of recovery without you having to go through an affair. You use such great examples in it.
Yes, I put a lot of personal experience in there, a lot of examples of our children, what they were both, our son was 11 at the time and our daughter was 8. And there were quite a few things they said during that time that I will never forget. Probably one of the greatest examples was our son, who was in a very difficult time because he was hitting puberty and he needed a stable father figure in his life. And one evening when my husband was at home and I was having a devotional with our kids, our son asked Dad if Dad was going to come home and stay for good. And my husband said, do you want me to? Do you want me to stay here tonight and not leave? And our son said yes. And Dad asked him, why do you want me to stay home? And our son Chris said, because that's what Jesus would do.
Yep.
And something like that, you don't forget. And those stories stick with me.
I love your book, and man, wherever you're going to be growing with this book, you got to keep in touch with us, because this is a story of truth, trust, faith, hope. I mean, you could attach so many keywords to it, because you know you had the courage to take a moment and turn it into a teaching tool.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I hope that's my heart's desire for this, and that probably the main reason I wrote it is I just simply want to help, even if it's just one person out there, know that there is hope. You do not have to give up. And divorce, in my opinion, was not an option. And as a Christian, I don't think divorce should even be in our vocabulary.
Right.
That was that was one of the things I said, and I will not forget it. The first night when my husband revealed to me that he was having an affair, is I said, what God has brought together, man will not separate, and divorce is not an option, and we will get help. He didn't want to hear that, and he pretty much wanted me to just give up and say, this marriage is done. But I refused to do that. I continued to love him despite my feelings, and that's what I want people to understand is you can't live on feelings when you're going through something like this. You can't live on your feelings, period. You have to live based on what God's Word says. One of my favorite sayings was, obedience comes first, understanding will follow. You cannot expect a result overnight. You've got to continue to obey God's Word and do what you know is right despite how you feel.
See, this book is such a valuable tool. I mean, I'm celebrating 25 years of marriage this year. Trust me, it didn't happen through a smooth road. You had to have those mountains and those valley floors.
Yes.
Well, congratulations on this book.
Thank you so much.